Like this
Oh,
won't fit me, like at all. So
yeah.
I think they sent me the women's one, or I clicked the women's one. Who knows?
It is the beginning of the week, and you know what that means? It means it is time for MASL Mondays. Hello, my name is Adam Snavely, your host, joined as always by a co-host whose first name begins with the letter P. We did that. Obviously, Pablo is not here. He was called away to both Mexico and Texas for a couple of things this week, but instead, I am joined by Phil Levanco. Phil, what's up? How's it going?
What's going on? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, Pablo is doing important things out in Mexico and in Austin. So I'm pitch hitting for the day. I'm the backup keeper, if you will.
We made a little substitute.
Yeah.
You know, I don't prefer to think of it as the backup keeper. I prefer to think of it as the sixth attacker. Thank you.
Oh, I
Thank
like
you,
it.
Phil.
All right.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. All right. My skills don't translate that way, but more backup keeper stuff.
Oh, no. If I know one thing about you, Phil, is that you're built for speed and agility.
I think you misread the scouting report, but I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm here. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to jump on the camera. I'm happy to have some takes. Can't have any takes on Under the Review, right? That's Ryan's show. It's all refereeing. It's very serious. People take it way too seriously. So I'm hoping to have some takes on this one and to have people mad at me.
We'll give you plenty of space for the takes. We'll give people plenty of space to get angry with you. And we like to have fun here. We like to have a good time. As evidenced by, this weekend, or this, rather, not even the weekend, this last Tuesday, I went out and caught the Chihuahua and Ontario Fury game in person. And speaking
That's right, it was your first game.
It was my first game.
First game live.
Speaking of having a fun time, I think that Ontario's mascot striker was having possibly a little bit too much of a fun time. It was his birthday, first of all.
Oh, okay.
So there were some birthday celebrations, including a gaggle of children that were singing happy birthday to him while he performed some frankly sensual dance moves to the song, which was a little bit weird to watch, a little bit odd, but
everyone celebrates their birthday week differently,
Truly. It also resulted in him getting banished from the player bench's side of the field for quite a long time when he, how do I put this eloquently, scared the absolute crap out of a bunch of Chihuahua Savage players by banging on the glass behind them while they weren't paying attention. Chihuahua wasn't very pleased. I think at one point, a player or assistant coach, I'm not sure which, dumped some water on Striker's head. They made some complaining. He made a very good nuisance of himself in all set. He was having a good time. It was a good night for Striker.
Part of the mascot duties, right? Make yourself a nuisance, be lovable by kids, try to annoy the other team as much as possible.
Yeah, and it had like almost a little bit of a video game feel to it as well. Like you almost like the cutscene that you see in Madden with a mascot getting a little bit too active, or maybe NCAA basketball, something like that. I don't know, Phil. If you have are you a video game guy? Do you like playing games at all?
I am. I experience my video games through Twitch. I'm an old. I don't have a lot of time to play video games. So what I do is I watch people play video games, and that's kind of how I experience them these days. We do have a Switch at home. I play a little bit with my daughter, but mostly it's watching Twitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that completely because in another alternate life of mine, currently, I also write about video games and esports. So I understand. I get it. I like Twitch a lot. I like how interactive it is with. I just feel like in a lot of ways it's a little bit better position than a lot of other streaming sites with how interactive it can get with the chat and the different rewards and stuff. So it is fun. I like Twitch a lot.
Yeah, and I will say too, esports is a thing. Like esports is a real thing. We even as an old, it is a part of our sports ecosystem now. 100%. To deny it, you have your head in the sand.
Yeah, no, Can't agree more. But getting a little bit more into what we are here to talk about today, I do want to talk about that Chihuahua Savage versus Ontario Fury game. Obviously, Chihuahua is finishing, or was finishing out. They have finished out. Was finishing out a bit of an away stand, some trip of Southern California, and I really think here, as I was watching the game, what stood out to me is Chihuahua as a bit of the hidden boss of the MASL.
Yes, I love this.
Just simply because they're not a team that's going to win their division. I think the Sockers have already clinched the division, not even
they have.
playoff.
Yep, Sockers have clinched the division. We should reset a little bit. Chihuahua won 5-4. They beat the Fury 5-4. So they those away wins are elusive for them, for sure. But they were able to beat a team that I believe they jumped them probably in the standings too. So they sit second in the West behind San Diego, who have clinched the division, and I love the way you put it. They are a hidden boss of the league.
Yeah, kind of following the video game theme that we set up earlier in the show here. What really struck me, and this is a Chihuahua that didn't have Roberto Escalante on the night. They were without kind of one of their talisman attackers. Just the commitment to pushing and pressing and harrying Ontario as Ontario was trying to play the ball out of the back, and it led to mistakes, and even like really some very basic stuff. Like there was times when you see the ball go back to Chris Toth, the keeper for the Ontario Fury, and Ontario kind of decides, all right, we're going to make a line change, we're going to make some substitutions here. And Chihuahua recognizes the game state, sees the ball down at the defender's feet or at Chris Toth's feet, and says, we're going to press you because you don't have any help. And there was multiple times where Ontario just either had to kick the ball out of bounds, had to kick the ball into the netting, or they were giving the ball away because Chihuahua was on them immediately. And when they got those opportunities, when they got the ball in those attacking spaces, they were clinical. The attacking efficiency was really a sight to behold. Obviously,
and they can strike the ball. They can strike the ball too, for sure.
Oh yeah, yes, they know how to kick the ball. Obviously, Ontario does have attacking, power of their own. You saw them kind of mount a comeback. Obviously, you have Frank Tayu in there. It's hard to not have attacking power when you have Frank Tayu in the team. But it ultimately wasn't enough. And Chihuahua is going to be a problem for one of these division leaders at some point in these playoffs. They're a team that I think can win this whole thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love Chihuahua. I love watching them play. I love the way that they attack. I love the way that they play, team offense. I must say, though, Ontario leaves me wanting a little bit. I respect the King. I respect everything he's done in the league. I love Justin Stinson as a player. I think he's super skillful. But every time I check in on Ontario, they just leave me wanting more. And I fully agree with your take that Chihuahua has total potential to pull an upset in this playoff round. But Ontario, man, like I don't know, I want more from you. And a home game against a team that is playing a second game. I mean, you gotta win those games, and I'm sure the players feel the same way. But yeah, I love your take on Chihuahua. I want more of Ontario. I think I don't know what else to say about Chihuahua. I totally agree. I think that they can absolutely upset someone and catch a team on their day because of the talent they have.
Yeah, and you're right about Ontario too. It just felt disjointed at times. It felt like they weren't sure what they wanted to do in attack, and it's not like they have a shortage of talented players. And I look even back in the defense. I mean, you had I believe Uzi Tayu was the defensive player of the week last week. So it's not like you have a lack of talent there. It was just that outside of the comeback attempt in the fourth quarter, maybe late third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, they just looked frequently like they were completely out of ideas against Chihuahua. And that's an issue when the game is still, within reach.
100%. Obasi played his first game too, traded from Utica to Ontario. They played him. Philly was saying on the broadcast they were playing him in midfield a little bit. So maybe they're trying to integrate him into the team. But yeah, man, come on, Fury, show us more. Show us more. You want to get into the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. And shouts out to Utica, by the way. We did not intentionally both wear Utica City gear for this show, but we showed up and we were both wearing it. So
yeah, buy us in the comments. I'm sure we'll be there. Buy us in the comments.
I'm just staying true to my upstate New York roots. I know that's not where you are from, but that is where you are currently, Phil. If I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Well, I'm a downstater, right? So anything north of Poughkeepsie to me is upstate. Like, and I still haven't really gotten over that. I know. It's a sad affliction that I have as a downstater, but I'll stand by it. Shout out to 718.
Personally, I'm from the 607, a little very, very small town called Bath, New York. So if anybody knows where that is, I appreciate you. And that's that. But yeah, let's get into the weekend a little bit more here. And kind of along the lines of Chihuahua as a hidden boss, I kind of think of the league right now as there's a clear top three. I mean, you have your clear division leaders, obviously. You have San Diego, you got Florida, and you got Kansas City. And then you have Chihuahua, where I kind of say Chihuahua is a team that could beat or could lose to any of those teams. And I don't think
100%.
I don't think you could say that necessarily about all of those teams. I think that I don't foresee San Diego losing to Kansas City in most situations. Personally, no disrespect to the Kansas City Comets, but right. I think that Chihuahua is that volatile team that you could win or lose to any of these top teams. And then below Chihuahua, things get a little bit interesting because I think there are some teams there that could possibly play spoiler. And I'm curious what you think about some of those teams that could play spoilers for the upper echelons of the league.
So we're talking about like playoffs now. We're talking about
getting into the playoffs. Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So I think I agree with you totally on Chihuahua. We've talked about them a lot. They're a super dangerous team. I think that obviously you have to mention the Blast here just on sheer veteran presence and historical dominance of the league. They currently sit in that top wild card spot. And on their day they can beat anybody, right? I mean, just whether or not they're on their tiny field or if they're on a bigger field. I've seen them on bigger fields handle teams just as easily. So the Blast 100% are a team that can kind of catch teams off. I'll give a shout out to Milwaukee a little bit too. I know they're sitting outside of the playoffs right now. They have 19 points, 3 behind St. Louis for that last spot. That game on Friday night in Kansas City was a tough loss for Milwaukee, 8-6 in Kansas City. Excuse me there. Yeah. But I think if they make the playoffs, I think if Milwaukee makes the playoffs, I know they're hurt. I know they didn't have their number one keeper in Kansas City, Matt Perella, but I think they can. I think that they can do some damage if they make the playoffs. They have Ian Bennett, right? They have the top goal scorer in the league. Ian Bennett's good for a hat trick every single time he steps on the field.
Absolutely.
He was. I will be remiss if I do not mention the goal that wasn't in the game on Kansas City. I will give a plug to my show. We will be talking about it on Under Review, but my heart goes out for Milwaukee fans because that's a tough one. It's a tough one. I don't know what else to say about it, but they were Milwaukee was winning. They had a chance in the fourth quarter. Kansas City Comets took over. Leo Gibson passes Wild West Wade for the all-time leading goal scorer in Kansas City professional indoor soccer. There is no more indoor soccer name than Wild West Wade. But yeah, I think those are our tiers, right? We did our tiers, right? We did the division winners. I think we have two hidden bosses in Baltimore and Chihuahua, and I think we have a sneaky spoiler in Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee, if they can get into the playoffs, and you look at some of these results too, they just aren't quite able to take a result against Kansas City. And then last weekend as well, they just are just beaten barely by Florida. There's some really, really good teams that Milwaukee is is playing with and playing tough here at the end of the season. They obviously need a little bit of help still to get into the playoffs. I believe they have a couple of games in hand, at least one or two, on some of the teams above them. So I would not say that they are, they're in dire straits yet, but they do need to pick up some points here. And
they've got. We'll just say real quick, they got 2 games next week against, or this upcoming weekend against St. Louis. That's the season.
Yeah, you have to win those games. You do wonder too what Milwaukee's season looks like if you have a schedule such as the Baltimore Blast, where Baltimore does get to play Utica City and Harrisburg a lot, and those are. I mean, obviously, no disrespect to the teams again, but those are 2 teams that are not doing very well. There are 2 teams that are sitting towards the bottom of the league, as opposed to that really strong Central Division where you have to play Kansas City. You have to play, I think, the team of ultimate chaos in the St. Louis ambush, where they are scoring almost at will and nearly as much as they are conceding all the time. You have to play a tricky team like Dallas, who, anytime Dallas is in a game, they could win it as well. I mean, just simply on the back of Juan Gamboa making some crazy saves. Yeah. You have people like Jay Lovegrove who are always good to pop up. I mean, similar to Ian Bennett, always good to pop up with a goal or two. And that is a tough division. You wonder if Milwaukee and Baltimore just switch divisions. If they were in different places, does this playoff picture look fundamentally different?
That's a great point. I think we'll definitely see. Listen, I have no idea about injuries or anything like that. I want to see Milwaukee get healthy for these games against St. Louis. You mentioned Dallas too. Dallas, got swept in Chihuahua this weekend, but obviously they were shorthanded for all those games. Yeah, Lovegrove didn't make it. Other, important pieces didn't make it. Gamboa stood on his head. Like you said, he's a difference maker for sure. Would it be different? Yeah, probably. I mean, Utica went to Milwaukee, played them tough, but ended up losing on a last second goal there, against the Wave. So yeah, absolutely. The playoff picture would look very different if Milwaukee was in the East. But as you know, right, you got to play the teams in front of you, and they've got a big series this weekend against the Ambush. Hopefully, Mo and Dye is healthy, because he's a absolute unit at the target position. And ever since he's left Baltimore, I don't know why he left Baltimore. I'm sure he wanted to be the guy, and he's the guy in St. Louis. They got a ton of pieces, the Ambush, but he makes them tick at least every time I watch him. So I'll be looking forward to those games for sure. But yeah, man, I want to see Milwaukee in the playoffs because I think they're going to be a lot of fun. If nothing else, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, absolute unit being the scientific term, I believe.
Yes. It's on the periodic table of elements. Unit. Yeah. UN is, I think, the code.
Like you mentioned, obviously you have Chihuahua handling their business against Dallas in a 2-game series down in Mexico. Dallas was missing a bunch of pieces, but like we kind of established before, Dallas is a team probably going to make the playoffs and could play a spoiler potentially, but we didn't get to see that. I think in large part also because they weren't at full strength with their personnel. San Diego took a Eastern road stand and took both results on the weekend. Actually, both pretty close games. I think surprisingly close games for the best team in the league, as we have continually said. 9-6 against Baltimore, and then a really, really surprisingly tough game. And I have to give a shout out. Utica City really, really put up a good fight and nearly mounted a comeback here. It was a pretty decent weekend, all told, for Utica, despite the fact that they probably won't be making the playoffs. I do have to show them some love. It was a big week, specifically for Joey Tavernese and some of his more acrobatic scoring skills.
Yeah, so on Friday night they were in Utica. They were in Harrisburg. I'm sorry. Utica wins 10-5 for sure. Tavernese has, what can only be described as a scorpion kick goal. A little Lala score, a little scorpion kick. But certainly a goal of the week candidate. As the person who puts those together, I'm pretty sure that's going to make it. But yeah, no, I think I want to go back to San Diego. You mentioned it real quick, and I have a theory on San Diego if you want to hear it.
Oh, please. I'm all for the San Diego theories.
Do you have a slow cooker?
You know, I don't have a specific slow cooker, but my wife and I tend to use our Dutch oven for like slow roasting pork and things of that nature.
So I think the Sockers are a slow cooker because they do this all the time. Every single time I watch them, they're, at halftime, it's a 1-goal game, it's a 2-goal game. And then in the second half, whatever happens, and they turn it up, right? Now I'm losing my slow cooker metaphor, but the next thing you know, you have pulled pork, right?
Yeah.
What they do is they just take teams and they put them in the slow cooker. And by the end of the game, the Sockers are winning by 4 or 5 goals. I mean, they have relentless talent. They're as deep as any team in this league, probably the deepest team in this league. But every game at halftime, 1-goal game, 2-goal game, keeping it close, right? And then the next thing you know, when you look at that final score, 8-4 Sockers, 10-6 Sockers. And you're like, what happened? This was a close game. But the Sockers just, they put them in the slow cooker, turn it on the high. And the next thing you know, you've got wonderful pulled pork.
Well, now I'm starving, so thank you for.
You're welcome.
For
yes,
all
I know it's
the
breakfast time by you.
The lovely food metaphors. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I've said it before on MASL Mondays, but I think that when they are clicking, the Sockers play some of the prettiest soccer in the league. Some of the attacks and counterattacks that they can construct are just very, very aesthetically pleasing to watch. I mean, it's hard not to be when you have people like Craig Childs kind of just pulling the strings all over the place for San Diego. But yeah, I kind of go back also to what I said about Chihuahua. The Sockers are just efficient. They're so clinical in that attacking third. If you give them an inch, they will take a mile. And so if you want to take a result against San Diego, you don't have to be perfect necessarily, but you have to be pretty close to perfect. You have to be limiting your mistakes because they will capitalize on those mistakes. Obviously, a massive shout out to Utica for playing them so close and nearly kind of pulling that one back. I want to believe in Utica. I want to believe in Utica. They haven't given me necessarily enough reason to believe in Utica, but I want to. You know what I mean?
I will say that was probably their best game of the year, especially at home, right? They took a San Diego team. Now, we should mention here, right? San Diego on Saturday night wins in Baltimore, has to travel up to Utica, way too many hours in a van, right? In the snow, because of course it's snowing in central New York in March, right? It's who knows what time they got here in Utica, right? For a game Sunday afternoon. So their legs were probably, I mean, who knows, what they had in the tank before the start of the game. So the game starts, right? You mentioned Craig Childs. Craig Childs had his Kurt Gibson moment at the Adirondack Bank Center. I'm reaching out to the kids with a Kurt Gibson reference, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't think of any other injured players. What's the Knicks name? What was the Nick that Willis Reed? He had his Willis Reed moment, right? Now we're getting older. And he comes on for a free kick, blasts a free kick goal, and walks off, right?
Clearly out of there.
A lot of KT tape. Yeah, a lot of KT tape on that knee. Obviously, we wish him nothing but the best.
Yes.
If he's hurt for a long time, that's something that only the Sockers can manage with their depth. But on the Utica side of things, I mean, they tried real hard, right? They're injured too. Segura was out for them. Moises Gonzalez, who was their leading scorer before he tore his ACL. Pat Thompson tore his ACL. Gonzaga, he's out for the year too. That was the trade that they made with Florida. So they came in battered too, turned it to the kids, turned it to the legs, and tried real hard, but you kind of saw the class difference, right? And I know my friends in the team will be texting me when they hear this, but there's a class difference, right, between San Diego and Utica right now. And as hard as they tried, San Diego's just a level above, right?
Yeah.
and that's how they pulled it out. So they, continue being the best team in the league, the top of the power rankings. Only one overtime loss all season. They are a machine that keeps going, and I mean, they're the pole, right? They're the measuring stick.
Yep.
And that's the team to beat in the playoffs for sure.
And I would love to see a full strength Utica take on a full strength San Diego. I think we all would love to see every team in the MASL have, all the players available to them. But it's a tough league. It's a physical league in a lot of ways.
Physical league.
And you keep on playing after the player injuries. Availability is a part of, the chemistry and the math to make up, where we are now. So
yeah.
It is the simple reality of things. Obviously, Utica not full strength, but that's not San Diego's fault. And San Diego came in and they did what good teams do.
Yeah.
They won the game that they should have won.
Yeah. And so that they do this thing in San Diego too, where they rotate the keepers, which is weird. And I don't really love it. That, like Pardo plays the first quarter and then his backup plays the second, then Pardo comes in again. So I don't really love it. I know there was a bad collision where Pardo had to come back in and play. So, I hope everyone's okay. That was Utica's 5th goal. But yeah, I don't love that little rotation thing. I know they tried to manage that game. I certainly saw it from the stands. But they got through in the end, right? So scoreboard. Good on the Sox, as they put on the Adirondack Bank Center scoreboard. We should talk Baltimore Harrisburg too on the other side.
We should give some love to the Harrisburg Heat, because the Harrisburg Heat snapped an 11-game losing streak, and it always feels good to see a team that is a little bit embattled and clearly kind of on the bottom of the league finally get one back again. Big congrats to the Harrisburg Heat for taking this result over the Baltimore Blast. And again, shouts out, like you mentioned before we started recording, another upstate New York shout out to Willie B. What's up?
Yeah. MASL Monday sponsored by upstate New York, or is Rochester Western New York?
I mean, technically, so it really depends on where you are. I say that I'm from Western New York. If somebody is from upstate New York, and if somebody that I'm talking to is from Pennsylvania or really anywhere else in the country, or New York City, Long Island, all that stuff, I say I'm from upstate New York, because I don't expect them to really get all the difference.
The Poughkeepsie theorem, as I said.
The Poughkeepsie theorem. I mean, I've heard Westchester. I've heard every definition of upstate New York under the sun. I've heard people from Oswego say, "Oh, nothing, south of here is upstate." So I don't. There's a billion different definitions. I'm just going to go with upstate for the greatest majority of people all over the country that could be watching this show.
Sure, yeah. Except those Long Island people, we don't like those much. But yes, shout out to Willie B, who was back in net for Harrisburg. But we talked about with those turnarounds and those physical leagues, right? Baltimore playing on Saturday, having to travel to the PA Farm Show Arena in Harrisburg. And the Heat are a little bit of a bogey team for Baltimore. I don't have any stats for this, so I don't know what their records are, but Harrisburg always plays Baltimore tough. Since I've been watching this league 4 or 5 years now, Harrisburg has always played Baltimore tough, and they are indeed the Blast's bogey team. And I've seen the Heat pick up wins, just pure sort of out gritting and out grinding the Blast, and they'll grab all 3 points from Baltimore. The coach there, he has the guys playing hard, as Willie B said on our midweek with Michelle. They're the youngest team in the league, and they continue to find people, teach them the indoor game, and that comes down to coaching, right? And I mean, they got goal scorers from everywhere. Matt Bremen, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, had a heck of a goal. Probably see it in goals of the week again. Dom Francis again with a strong game. I think he had 1 or 2. I can't remember now, even though I watched the game this morning. But always, I mean, always, Harrisburg always plays Baltimore tough and picks them off. at least once a season. So super happy for the Heat, super happy for the Pulisic family that Harrisburg was able to pull one out against Baltimore.
Yeah, it is. I think that you brought up that quote from Willie B too. It is a league of veterans in many ways, and a lot of the people that are kind of dominant in this league have been so for many years and have all of that experience. And you talked about Baltimore as being that team that is as always kind of has that experience. It feels like Tony Donatelli could have enough experience for an entire division at one point. But
sure, yeah, Nelson Santana's older than me,
Yeah, absolutely. So it is difficult when you are bringing in kind of this new blood and you are not only teaching them how to play within your team, but just teaching them how the game is different from probably the outdoor game that you have plucked them from. It's not easy, but hopefully maybe next season or even down the road even further, you see that starting to pay some dividends for the teams that really do invest in the youth and the young guys like Harrisburg is doing. So
shouts out sports works, right?
Absolutely. Very, very much so. Shouts out to Harrisburg. Way to get that win. Proud of you guys. And finishing out the weekend, we also have finally Tacoma versus Florida. Florida kind of took Tacoma out behind the woodshed here, Phil.
Yes, they did. And
I guess you expect that. But Florida has in some of these away stands that Florida has done, and we have talked extensively at this point about these teams that have been traveling and how much the travel does affect your legs, but they have not necessarily looked as convincing in the Central Division team against the Central Division teams as they do normally against the teams that they're usually playing in the East. This game, however, was not like that.
Nope. No, it was not. It was not close. Florida, as you said, this is what is this? This is like the Orlando Vancouver trip, right?
Sure.
Probably the longest travel of all of MASL, right? I mean, there can't be a longer trip. And I'm sure
Utica, Chihuahua might be, but I don't know.
Utica with Chihuahua. Oh my God, how many flights would they have to take?
That would be. I mean, just connecting to like major airports, it would be awful.
That's a whole day. It's a whole day of travel for sure from Syracuse. But yeah, Florida's a really good team, right? Florida's a really deep team, as we've always said. My favorite players in the team. I love the way Zach Reggett plays. Been a fan of his since St. Louis, Milwaukee, all of his stops. Drew Ruggles from Milwaukee as well. They a little bit of issue with the goalie, right? Hugo Silva can't play because of visa issues. But they have Diegas back, and Diegas I saw here and worked with him here in Utica. He's a goal scorer. He's really, really good. And Fleur was able to reacquire him. I know they love him down there in Lakeland. And they were able to get his visa, and he's out on the field, and I love seeing him play because when I saw him play in Utica, I didn't realize how intense he was. And that's what really stood out to me when he was here was his intensity. And now watching him back down in Florida, I appreciate his game even more because not only his intensity, he is a pure finisher. He is as good as a 9 as there is in this league. And he's only going to make that Tropics team better. Now I'm going to put you on the spot real quick.
Okay.
Florida, Kansas City, San Diego, right? So those are our 3 teams for the playoffs.
Yes.
Who do you think Kansas City, Florida has a better chance to knock off San Diego?
It's tough, right? Because we've seen San Diego already beat Kansas City pretty handily, but again, Kansas City was on the road at the time, and they're missing Leah Gibson, which counts for a lot for Kansas City.
100%.
That is not an easy task at full strength, let alone missing, your player, coach, legend, new father again, Leah Gibson. That is a difficult task. However, I think I'm going to go with Florida here. I think I'm going to lean on Florida, and like you said, some of that intensity. You already mentioned him, but I love Drew Ruggles. I love the way he anchors that team, and the way that he reads the game. which is hard. It's hard to read the indoor game. It's a game that's based so much more on reaction and first instinct rather than as opposed to the outdoor game. But a lot of the time, Drew Ruggles just makes it look easy. Like he just looks like he knows what's coming so much of the time. And I think that's really, really important against San Diego and that attack. So I'm probably going to go with Florida there.
I'm looking forward to the Newmies this year. I think it's going to be a slugfest, and those top tier teams, right? With Chihuahua, with Baltimore, we're rooting for Milwaukee to make it. It's going to be a blast. No pun intended. You know, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that is it for the weekend as we are kind of winding down towards the playoffs. Obviously, the Ron Newman Cup is coming up very, very shortly. We do have a few games this weekend that are going to be very important for some teams
Huge
trying
games
to make it into the playoffs. So make sure you stay tuned for those. And after you tune into those, go ahead and tune into MASL Mondays next week because we're going to be breaking those down again. Phil, thank you so much for filling in for Pablo today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to everyone's comments in the Facebook, on YouTube. I called it the Facebook. Oh, it's terrible.
The Facebook. Really throwing it
I'm old. That's how we're doing it.
Kurt Gibson and the Facebook.
That's and the guy from the Knicks.
And the guy from Kurt Gibson, the Facebook, and the guy from the Knicks. That's the title.
The guy from the Knicks. You know, the limping guy, right?
I think we've covered it all there. So from Phil and I, thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you again next week.